everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayne Monroe, an aspiring author, and here I like to talk about books, literature, writing, and storytelling, especially if it's romantic. So, I just got back from the bookstore. I took a little trip to an independent bookstore that is like across the river and through the woods. It's not that far, but it feels that far for me. It's basically like right at the river, right before the river, close to the river. It was a little bit of a trip. I love to go to Barnes. It's like 15 minutes from my house, but there's a reason why I decided to go to the bookstore that's further away. It is a local independent bookstore. And we'll get to that once we get to the books. So what are we doing today? A little book haul. Since I just got back from the bookstore, I thought I would show you some of the books that I got today and recently, since I haven't done one of these for a while. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, now this is a book actually that I got right before New Year's. When I took a little trip to Barnes & Noble, I like to go check out and see what they have right after the holidays, see what sales they have. I don't think this was on sale, but it is a gorgeous copy of Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë, a book that I am planning to reread, I think for the third time. Since the movie's coming out, that's my MO. Movies coming out, is like, oh, I gotta either read that book or reread it. And I couldn't remember a lot of the stuff that happened. I gotta say, the movie trailers for Wuthering Heights don't resemble anything that I remember from the book, but it's also been a while since I last read the book. So, time to revisit. I just loved this edition. I think it's just really beautiful the way the trees are kind of like woven in with the author's name, and it just really evokes kind of that barren wilderness and also wintry and just bleak and gorgeous. Just love it. I think it has, here's another thing I love. I was like, I could get this secondhand. I could see if I could find it secondhand, but it was like I was at Barnes, it was right there. And I've noticed that a lot of the older editions of books have really small print, and I was just like, this is gorgeous. I love, first of all, it just like it lays a little easier, and it has like these little, like before each chapter, it has like these little or these little like plates that have like quotes from the chapter, like a significant quote from the chapter, and then look at the print. The print is just like nice and big, so I love that, and it's just a beautiful edition, I think. It is a little on the heavy side, even though it's paperback, but I think it's because the print is bigger, so there's more pages, and it's just got a nice weight to it. So that is Wuthering Heights that I am going to try to read before Valentine's Day, before that movie release. All right, so here are the books that I just got today from the indie bookstore from Bookworks. First up is, gave me a little bookmark. First up is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I just read this book, I think in November crossing over into December. I read this, or maybe it was, okay, we're just gonna say November. I read this in November. I had not heard of this author until just recently, and I'm becoming a fan. I read this, loved it. It's also a book that I think is kind of a comp title for the manuscript that I am revising right now. So I really want to get in, and now that I've read it and haven't, get in and do all my little annotations and analyses of the book. And it's related to another book that just released by this author called Heart the Lover, which I'm in the middle of reading right now. I'm actually 2/3 of the way done. So I'm really glad that I read this first, got it from the library, and then was like, okay, that's one that I'm going to buy. What I'm trying to do this year is make sure that books that I buy, I read first, use my library, read the book first, and then be like, okay, yeah, I want this on my shelf. I want to study it, whatever. Writers and Lovers is basically, it's set in the 90s, the late 90s, I think 1997 to be exact, and it is about a college graduate who's buried under student loans and is recovering or trying to deal with the grief of losing her mother and navigating, like working the dead-end jobs, and she gets involved in a love triangle that sort of opens things up for her, but also forces her to sort of face and deal with some things that are going on in her life. So that is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. Then I have, well, listen, I talked about these books often enough that it's like, okay, it's literally time to get them. But this is what was happening. So what was happening was, because I wanted to finish the entire series first, and then I wanted to get all the books all at one time. And every time I went to the store, it was kind of like, oh, one book is missing from the series. So I finally got the Skyland Series by Kennedy Ryan, Before I Let Go, and This Could Be Us, and Can't Get Enough. I am just so stoked to finally have these books. I talk about them all the time, so may as well, now I can have them on my shelf. Very excited. This is a series that follows 3 women in a friend group and their respective romances. The first one is in Before I Let Go. We have Yasmin and Josiah Wade, second chances. They're a divorced couple who were super in love when they got married and then just could not withstand a major tragedy in their lives, and they split apart, but they have to still work together because they own a business together and they're co-parenting their kids, and they find themselves like reconnecting. So second chances, Before I Let Go. Then we have This Could Be Us, which is Soledad's story. Soledad is a stay-at-home mom. She's raising 3 kids and taking care of the house for her and her family, and finds out that her husband has gotten himself into serious hot water, and now she's having to figure out what to do because he's been arrested, their assets have been frozen, she has no money, and she's got a house and a mortgage and 3 kids to take care of. And so this is her story of sort of regrouping, rebuilding her life after all that, and the unexpected romance that comes along sort of as a result of this, disaster she's going through. And then last but not least, Can't Get Enough. This is Hendrik's story. Hendrix is like the really super outgoing, really well-off, self-actualized character in the friend group. Member of the friend group. She has money, she has a great high-powered glamorous career, she always has a great comeback and just an up and positive attitude. She's kind of the friend that the other ones rely on. She comes to their help, their rescue a lot. She is there for them. She's always got the great advice and other kinds of help. And this is a story about her and kind of exploring how even the strongest one in the group needs help sometimes. She is taking care of her mother who is failing in health, and taking care of navigating that because her mother doesn't live where she lives, and then still trying to run her business, and an unexpected distraction comes along in the form of a man who might be her match, but there are some serious obstacles to them connecting. So that is Can't Get Enough, the last in the Skyland series by Kennedy Ryan. Okay, next up, what do we have? Okay, well, y'all know that I recently reread Pride and Prejudice, loved it. There's a reason why this is a classic, holds up. Also really wanted to break this book down because there's some really interesting things I noticed about the structure of this book that I think will help me with the structure of the book that I'm revising. I just went through my manuscript and realized, now that I know more about structure and have more tools at my disposal than when I first wrote it, I'm like, oh, it is way imbalanced. I need to figure out how to fix this structure. And so looking at different books that have different structures has been really helpful. And one thing I noticed about Pride and Prejudice is that, to me, when I was reading it, I think that the sort of midpoint disaster happens right in the middle of the book. A very common structure is that the midpoint of a story is when things change. There's no going back, or things take a real drastic turn. But then about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the story is when an ordeal happens, the dark night of the soul. In a lot of times in the romance, it's the breakup. In other stories, it might be a tragedy or a major setback where you're like, man, I'm not going to recover from this. But in this story, I feel like that sort of I don't know, disaster happens in the middle. And then the rest of the book, the second half of the book, is sort of repairing that without giving too much away. As if I could give anything away about Pride and Prejudice, because I think most people know the story by now. But let's just say that the protagonist, Elizabeth Bennet, she is one of 5 daughters who, during like Regency era, I think it's called Regency era, the early 1800s, when only option for really having a decent life is to marry a man who's well off. And she meets Fitzwilliam Darcy, who is somebody that would be a great match as far as he's got his stuff together, he's got a house, he's got money, but his manners and his personality don't seem all that great when she first meets him. So it's about their story. And something happens between them in the midpoint that to me was like, oh, this is kind of a major blow for both of them. And then the last half of the book is them repairing that. So I feel like the disaster happened earlier, and then there's other things that come after that repair and resolve what happened. So anyway, definitely going to break this one down. They had a different edition. They had a couple different editions of this book, but I got the one that seemed like it would be closer to like if I got the second hand as far as pricing. And I just, I'm really kind of digging this classic penguin look. I know a lot of people, somebody I follow on BookTube has like a whole collection of this very style, and it looks really cool. And I like this old fashioned like painting style too. So that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And I think I have just a couple more. Okay, here's the reason. Ooh. Also, they had some free bookmarks from ACLU, New Mexico. I love banned books and I read banned books. That is for sure. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is the reason why I went to Bookworks to get Once Upon a Time in Dollywood by Ashley Jordan. It's a Reese's Book Club pick. I had seen this book. You know what they say about marketing? You have to see something 3 times before anybody's even going to remember, and then like maybe 7 times before they think, should I get that? I think that happened with this book for whatever reason. I don't know what it was. It was like, this sounds like it should be right up my alley, but it just took a while for it to come on my radar. And the reason why it really came on my radar was because I'm on the Bookworks email newsletter, and they're doing a book club. They just started a romance book club, and this is their book club pick. And so I'm like, ooh, maybe I might even go to the book club. I have a history of like having a hard time going to book clubs because they're always in the evening and they go on long, and I have chronic fatigue, so it's often difficult physically for me to do evening events, particularly if they are, longer than an hour. And then at night, where it's like I'm usually like getting into bed. Like still being out when I should usually be getting into bed is hard. But this book club is actually only going to be an hour. I might actually be able to make it if I can plan and prepare. But anyway, this came across my radar because they're doing the book club thing, and I have this sort of like self-imposed rule that if I hear about a book or I make a decision to get a book because of a particular bookstore or venue, then I will go out of my way to get the book from them. So this is why I went all the way to the river to go to this bookstore. So what is this book about? Okay. I love this because I'm in the middle. So here's the story. I'm a quarter of the way through it. I got it on Libby. It was available when I heard about this. Was finishing another book. You know how it is when you check books out from the library, particularly on that Libby app. Nothing's available, and then all of a sudden they're all available, and you're like trying to scramble to read them. So I was reading another book on Libby, and then this one became available, so I couldn't start it right away. So I lost probably about 4 or 5 days of my checkout time, and I only got a quarter of the way through the book before it went back. And wouldn't you know it, 2 other people in line. I ain't getting that book back for a while, probably because everyone's trying to read this book on the Libby app because of the book club. That's my guess is what's happening. So this is a story about a playwright who is having a really bad year, writer's block, and just is like, I have got to get away. goes to her grandmother's cabin. So her grandmother passed away, and the cabin has just been kept in the family for them to use whenever. Goes to her grandma's family in Tennessee, which happens in the Tennessee mountains, which happens to be near Dollywood. So that's where the title comes from. And while she's there trying to regroup and trying to figure out her life and recover, she meets next door, basically the equivalent of the next door neighbor, Jamie Gallagher, who has his own cabin nearby and knew her grandmother and was friends with her grandmother and kind of was there to help take care of her when she was, failing and passing away. So that's that connection. And so they meet, and she's like, I absolutely cannot be getting into a relationship right now because I just blew my last relationship up. I'm here trying to heal. And similarly, Jamie has also going through a really bad breakup. So they should not be getting involved with each other. But of course, they are very attracted, and we'll have to see what happens. So that's Once Upon a Time in Dollywood. Hopefully we'll get this read in time to do the book club and maybe even get to the book club. I might actually make it. We'll see. And then is this the last book? This is the last book. I got Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. It's the only book that I didn't own. I had read this. I read it when it came out. Story behind this. They had both editions. They had the Netflix tie-in and then this one. But I decided I just wanted to get all of the originals and have them all sort of, match. So People We Meet on Vacation. The only reason why this is the last one to make it onto my bookshelf collection is because I did read this book. I did enjoy it. But I was actually in the hospital when this book came out. And I was recovering. It was just a bad time. It was a terrible hospital stay because I was there for a long time and I was physically miserable because I was sick enough to be in the hospital and then recovering. What was it one of the nurses said? She says, you go to the hospital to get fixed and then you go home to get better. God, now I can't remember how she put it because it's been a while and I was drugged up or in pain or both. But basically she's like, the hospital is the crisis fix and then you have to go home to get better. So of course you're miserable. That was her explaining why I was miserable and not feeling better, because it's like, you're not home yet. You're still in the hospital because you're still in crisis mode. Anyway, while I was in the hospital, my friends rallied. They're like, what can we get you? And I'm like, and I had read Beach Read, loved it, was waiting for this book to come out. And I was like, there's a book called People We Meet on Vacation that's just come out. It's probably going to be right when you walk in. And so my friend went and got it for me. So this was the book that I read while I was drugged and in pain, and both. And this helped me keep my sanity, to be honest. But because I so strongly associate this book with being miserable and in the hospital, I have never been able to feel like I could properly judge whether I like this book as well as any of the others. Like, I can't really properly rank this book to all the others because I still associate it with that time. Also, you might be thinking, well, if your friend got you a copy of this book, why don't you still have it? So you know how it is in the hospital, or maybe you don't. Hopefully you don't, actually. But this is the deal. When you're in the hospital, you got a tiny, tiny little tray to hold all your stuff. Your books, the mail people bring to you, the magazines people bring, the little toys, and of course, the water and the little snacks that they bring you. Tiny, tiny little tray. And you got all these cords, and you're out of it. Too much stuff. And knocked over a big old glass of water and soaked the entire book. So when I got home from the hospital and was unpacking all this stuff, I'm like, oh, there's that book that is now completely ruined because it was just waterlogged, and it was just like, it's been damaged. It's like too closely associated with that awful time. And I just dropped it in the recycle bin. I said, maybe someday I'll get myself another copy. And this was the day. So that is People We Meet on Vacation. Oh, what's this book about? Poppy and Alex. Poppy and Alex, college friends, super close, complete opposite. She is very like extrovert, tries to always make things fun, and he's just like a planner, laid back, chill. This is what I remember about it anyway. I remember they were the complete opposite. They were best friends. They used to always take vacations together, and then on one of their vacations, something happened and they got into a huge fight and quit speaking. But now they have to, what is it? Why do they have to get together again? A wedding? There's some trip. Maybe she just wants to, maybe it's in the Netflix one that is a wedding. I'm like, I don't remember a wedding, but also I was on drugs when I read this book. I think that Poppy just decides that she wants to repair this friendship. So she's like, we need to go on one last trip and see if we can figure out what went wrong, see if we can repair it and have our friendship back. I think that's what happens. Yeah. So that's people we meet on vacation in a quick and dirty nutshell based on my vague memories and the fact that now my brain is getting mixed up with the changes they made to the Netflix adaptation that I haven't seen yet, but from what I hear, they get together because of a wedding. Oh yeah, I don't think there's a wedding here. Oops, spoiler alert, there's no wedding. I'm like, I do not remember a wedding. I just remember a bunch of different trips and flashbacks and it getting really sad towards the end. And then, of course, things work out one way or another. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, y'all. So there's my stack. This is like probably the biggest book haul I've ever done. Look, it's the beginning of the year. I did a lot of reading last year. I did a lot of like making lists of which books do I really, really want. Gonna do some breakdowns and analyses. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Super excited. Now I just have to find room on my bookshelf for all these books. That's the next thing. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be great. So that's it for this book haul. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you have seen the Netflix adaptation or are going to see it and what you think. If you think it does the book justice, because that's the real question. Let me know what you think about Wuthering Heights, what you think about that adaptation that's coming out, whether you're excited to see the movie or not. Lots of chatter happening about the adaptation based on the trailer. Only comment I have is, of course I'm going to go see it. I really want to read the book first, and nothing that happens in the trailer resembles what I remember about Wuthering Heights. Let me know your thoughts. And until next time, bye. I actually really do have to find a place for these books now.